Hey guys, what is up? Oki here, bringing you the first Season 11 ranked tier list for the support position. Going to be showing you guys which champions to be abusing, which ones to be avoiding to aid you in your ranked climb. If you're watching this on the day that it came out, it is day 1 of Season 11, ranked season. And I wish you guys all luck in achieving all of your goals. And I would love to know about your goals down in the comment section. And hopefully this video helps you achieve those. If you guys are new to the channel, you've never seen me before, my name is Ioki. I am a Grandmaster, multi-season high elo support player. I specialize in playing a ton of champions. I've got a lot of knowledge about the support role in general. And before we get into the video and the tier list, I would like to give a huge shout out to the sponsor for the video, Insights.gg. If you want to climb in Season 11, reviewing your gameplay is going to be important. Insights.gg has a high-performance game recorder that detects kills, deaths, and assists, making capturing and reviewing game footage fast and easy. It's 100% free, so check out the tool today. Links in the description below. Alright guys, without further ado, let's get into the tier list. So I ranked these tier lists from tier 5 to tier 1. We're not going to spend too much time on tier 5 because these champions are absolute doo-doo. They are trash. You should not play them. These are champions that either with the new, Season 11 items, they either got shoved out of the support role, they never really found which mythics are great and efficient to build, or in Pantheon's case, have been kind of artificially pushed out of the support role. If you've been playing the game for the last couple of months, you've been noticing that a lot of times in the patch notes, there's something nerfing Pantheon as the support. They really did not like how oppressive he was, and let's be honest, he was super broken. But there's been a lot of changes focused on pushing him out of the support role, pushing him more into solo lanes. He's just really not good in support anymore. He can't turret dive with his E, his cooldowns are all focused on scaling, all of his base stats. The way that his abilities scale, they're just all focused on getting levels, which obviously when you're in a duo lane, you get less levels. So not great in support. Fiddlesticks, ever since his rework, has completely struggled with his support. He doesn't have the poke that he used to have with his E, since now it's not targeted and you have to get really close to use it. Just really bad in support. Rammus, unless you're like a Rammus one trick or your name is Alicopter, you probably shouldn't be playing Rammus support. It's a fun idea, and you would think that it would work just as well as something like, Alistar or Leona, but it really just does not. Camille, again, she had like one game in pro play years ago, but other than that, she's just never really been a staple of the bot lane. She's never really found, she doesn't have a lot of good matchups. She's risky to play as a support, doesn't provide a lot other than hard engage, and there's so many other champions you could be doing that with that also bring, other things to the table. Sion, really just a cheese pick. If you're going to play Sion support, you can run like a glacial build and basically just like camp in a bush, run into them, and then make use of like glacial in your passive, like run them down, but it doesn't work that often, and if you're playing against people with a brain, it won't work at all. Ivern. Ivern is one of those champions that a lot of people want to work as a support. Like, he's got such a utility-based kit, but the reality is he needs camps to actually like become a champion at some point in the game. Yes, you can be building Moonstone and running Ivern as a support, but like at that point you're just playing bad Janna. And we'll get to Janna, and I'll tell you why you want to actually be playing Janna right now, later. But yeah, Ivern is just one of those, like, people want him to be a support, but he really just does not. Ornn, same thing. He's got a lot of support ability in his kit, but the reality is the biggest thing that this champion brings is hard engage and the fact that he can upgrade his teammates' items, and that is gated behind levels. You'll notice a pattern here. Same thing with what I talked about with Pantheon. If things are like artificially gated behind what level you are, that champion's probably not going to be a good support because you are splitting all of the XP that you have throughout the entire game. Even if you're roaming, like you're roaming mid, you're still splitting XP with the mid laner, and when you're in bot lane, you're splitting it with the ADC. So just not a big fan of Ornn. He is fun, but not great as a support. So like I said, not going to spend too much time on the tier 5 because you shouldn't be playing these champions. It's a new season. Let's play the good champions. We're not there yet, though. So tier 4. These champions, you definitely are hurting your climb by spamming these champions, or so unless you really just like have a lot of love for these champions, they should really be relegated to just like counter picks or, for fun champions. Not going to spend too much time on these as well, but I will briefly go over why I have each one in tier 4. Oh, that's Taric. You can't see him because my webcam. There it is. So Taric is up first. I haven't moved Taric since the beginning of the last patch notes that I did, because I don't really think much has changed for Taric. Unless you're pairing him like with a duo with like a Master Yi, really all he brings to the table is his ultimate, which requires a little bit of coordination. I think that's the biggest thing that hurts Tark in solo queue, and this is a very solo queue based tier list. You need coordination for a lot of to get like a lot out of that champion. You need coordination for the stun, you need coordination for the ultimate. You know, if you pop your ultimate as your team is disengaging, you're not even going to get any use out of the ultimate. So for that reason, he is in tier 4. There's fringe cases where like he can empower like a Master Yi to 1v9 the game, but I really am not a big fan of Taric. Again, so on to Poppy. Like I said at the beginning when I was talking about tier 4, not great champions, but they can be used as counter picks. If you're against like a Leona or an Alistar or a Pyke, you can be locking in that Poppy support. Other than that, I really would never be first picking her. Soraka. So the way that the meta is kind of in a weird spot because there's two routes you can go for. You can lock in enchanters and try to carry by enabling a hyper carry, like a Fed Kayn or something. Or you can lock in a ton of damage. And when I say a ton of damage, there are some tanks that do a ton of damage. Leona does quite a lot of damage. But really, when I'm talking about damage, I'm talking about brand. So of the two routes, you want to go like an actual enchanter that can straight enable a hyper carry. I'm talking like Yuumi. I'm talking Lulu. Soraka doesn't really fall into either of those camps. Yes, she does have healing. Yes, Moonstone is quite strong. But ironically, in order to abuse Moonstone, you need to stay in combat. And Soraka isn't necessarily super great at that because every time she's in combat, she's endangering herself and she just gets focused and dies. So for that reason, she is probably the worst enchanter in the game right now, I would say. Braum. I hate this champion. I don't even want to talk about this champion. Moving on. Let's move on to Galio. Another one of those champions that like people just really want to work super bad in the support position, but I've never really found a ton of success. I've never really meshed well with like the way that his like combos go, and I don't know if that's a me problem or a Galio problem, but really every time I see the enemy lock in a Galio support, I get pretty excited because I know we're about to get a free win. Yes, he does provide team-based utility. He's got this big AoE taunt. He's got a big knock-up ultimate to save a carry, but you're really going out of your way if you're locking in Galio because his hard engage is not nearly as good as the actual hard engage champions, and his peel is not as good as the actual peel champions. He's fun. That's pretty much what he has going for him, which is pretty much what the next champion has going for her too. Neeko. I love playing this champion. She is very, very fun. I love the way her combos work together. And I also have a nice build, and you can check that video out if you want. I'm building Everfrost on Neeko. I think it's really nice, actually. You can like E, and then you know the normal combo before Everfrost existed was E, Tangle Barbs into her ultimate. You know, hold them rooted while the ult charges up, and now you can actually E into Everfrost into ultimate to make sure they don't, you know, cleanse it, or if they have Merc Treads, get out before the ulti goes off. Pretty much get a guaranteed ultimate if you land your E. So for that reason, she is fun, but I can't in good conscience promote this champion as someone who's actually good. She has always struggled in the support position because she's very, very low range. She does bring a surprising amount of damage, and she's got some decent catch, especially if you're playing against bot laners that like to stand behind minions, because her E is actually better if it's going through minions. But yeah, I think the range deficit is what really hurts this champion against other catch or damage-oriented champions. Moving on to Shin. Shin, there are certain times in the meta where Shin is actually better than Leona. This is not one of those times. I really, when people come to my stream and ask me, you know, what do you think of Shin's support? What I always tell them is I think he's a higher damage, but way riskier version of Leona. He pretty much does the same thing in lane. He's looking to land those taunts and then all in, and he does bring quite a lot of damage, especially after you've got like 2 points into your Q. But he's so much riskier because think of it this way. If Shin misses his taunt, doesn't CC the enemy, just misses it, even if it's by a hair, he pretty much dies, right? If Leona misses her E, she doesn't go in. She's still in her original position. So yeah, she takes a little bit of a bad trade and gets kited around a bit maybe, but I'm pretty sure Shin just dies if he misses his E. So for that reason, I can't ever really recommend him over Leona. Veigar kind of got the shaft because damage is very high in the support position if you can afford to build like Demonic Embrace and Liandry's. Not so great for like the bursty style of support that Veigar brings. His cage is just a little bit too slow. His damage is not quite as high unless you can afford to farm for the first 15-20 minutes, which you aren't going to be doing as support. So unless you're in a matchup where you are just landing Q after Q after Q after Q on the enemy champion and building up those Q stacks, I don't really think Vygar's that great this season. For the same reason, Shaco, uh, actually, I would place this. I would almost place Shaco in tier 5. Shaco's support feels very, very bad. You just don't quite have the burst to get the one shots, that the tricky assassinations off that this champion needs to thrive. I just do not think Shaco's very good. Vygar. Sorry, Vel'Koz. Kind of in the same place as Vygar. Yes, they do bring a lot of damage, but it's not the correct style of damage that is actually flourishing in bot lane. You'll see as we move up higher up the tier list that the high damage supports that I have are the ones that are building Liandry's. I'm talking like Brand. Vel'Koz he's just not cutting it from a poke support's perspective. So on to the next one, we got J4. Now J4, I've got a soft spot for this champion, and there is a weird cheese build floating around with him where he can build like Moonstone and Airy and put down his flag and give that Airy to his teammate, which, shields them, heals them. Not great, though. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. Zilean, love this champion. He used to be like my go-to hyper carry champion. He has just really struggled historically for the past like 2 seasons. He's just in a really weird spot, and especially with the removal of the glacial items, such as Spooky Ghost, what was that item called? Twin Shadows, and GLP. Since those items are no longer there, taking Glacial Augment as a rune is way, way less effective. And for that reason, he's lost another layer of utility that he used to bring last season. So he's kind of like this in this weird Twilight Zone where, like, yeah, you can still bring Glacial Augment, but you're literally only doing it to slow with your autos, and that's not great because you don't really do that past laning phase. So for that reason, Zilean is very low tier 4. Tahm Kench, he's got an upcoming rework, so he's not like a completely doomed champion, but until that rework gets here, he's a doomed champion, guys. Do not play this champ. Gragas, I recommend playing this champion as support if you are a Gragas one trick only. There's a lot of crazy things you can do with Gragas, but they're mechanics and like playstyles that are very unique to Gragas. So unless you're very comfortable with that champion, learning how to adapt that playstyle into support intuitively is not very easy. So I wouldn't recommend Gragas unless you're, a Gragas mid player that got autofilled mid or something, or got autofilled support. Trundle, he's like a tank buster support that can sort of catch with his pillar, but neither of those things are super effective and like more attractive than just locking an actual tank or an actual catch champion. Anivia. I would place Anivia actually high tier 4 just because Anivia is like possibly one of the strongest champions in the game right now. And that's kind of how we end up with things like Pantheon support. Pantheon support was so strong pre all these nerfs because not because he brings a lot to the table as a support, but because he's so hilariously strong that like he will also work as a support. It's like when a new champion comes out, like Yone, who is just like hilariously broken on release. You can also play him as a support and it will work. Not because he's a support champion or he has support, he brings things to the table as a support, but just because he's so strong that of course he'll work as a support also. So I would place her in high tier 4 just because of that. Once she gets the inevitable nerfs, I wouldn't really recommend playing her unless, like with the Gragas, you're a Nivea one trick. So moving up into tier 3, these champions are average, and this is one of the biggest tiers. As we get up more closer to the top, you'll see that tier 4 and tier 3 are the highest populated because there's a lot of average champions this season. Average is a large scale. So let's get into it. These champions should really only be played with them if you are skilled with them or if they are used as counter picks. So Bard can be absolutely devastating to either team. He's one of those unique champions that can screw your own team over with his ultimate. I can't think of another champion that does it better than Bard, actually. So for that reason, I don't think he's like a champion you should pick up like once a month. If you are going to invest the time into Bard, I think you can get a lot done with that champion. But this list isn't really targeted at people who are, already very proficient at these champions. I'm trying to recommend to you guys champions that you can pick up, learn in 5 to 10 games, and then like actually do well on this patch with. So unless you have prior experience with Bard, I would leave him be. Nautilus is one of the more average tanks champions. Nautilus and Thresh, I'll talk about them both at the same time. They're really kind of relegated into building Locket, which is good when you like Locket is a good item stats wise. It's quite boring, which is very unfortunate. I think tank support's kind of got the shaft when it comes to like exciting items and fun items. But Locket is fine. The problem is that you don't it's not always useful. Like for instance, Nautilus can peel or he can go in, right? He's primarily used as a hard engage. So let's say you build Locket, which is pretty much your only option as Thresh and Nautilus, and then you get a really good pick, and then you're deep into the enemy team, and your team is not even around you for you to be able to pop Locket. The efficiency of that item drops dramatically when you're not peeling. So that's kind of like, and it's more of a problem with the itemization itself than with the champions, but unfortunately these champions really only have the one item that they can build. Yes, you can be super greedy and go Kim Tank, what is it, Kim Tank Turbo? I don't know what that item is called, man, and I've been playing it for like a month now. What is it, Turbo Kim Tank? It's Turbo Kim Tank. You can be greedy and go Turbo Kim Tank, but one that's a greatly more expensive item, and it's very, very situational, and again, very greedy. So the one like standard item that you have to build on these two champions is Locket. Rakan got a little bit more lucky because he's got Shurelya's, which also got buffed this patch, up to 60% from 40%. When you pop the active, it gives your team 60% engage. So Rakan is a lot more versatile. I would put Rakan in high tier 3, whereas these two tanks are in bottom tier 3. Rakan got a little bit luckier just because he's a bit of like a jack of all trades. He brings a lot to the table. He can peel, he can shield, he can engage, he can, he kind of does a bit of everything. So he can pick and choose which item is good for the game. But yes, I skipped Alistar, by the way. Alistar, pretty average overall. Not much to say about the champion. Just very average. Not the best peel, not the best engage, but definitely playable if you enjoy the champion. Pyke, I am almost on the fence about dropping Pyke to tier 3 or tier 4, but I did leave him in tier 3 for this patch. They once again nerfed the burst on Duskblade, so that's another direct nerf to Pyke. The only reason I'm leaving him in tier 3 is because it's starting to look like Aftershock Pyke is starting to come back into style. Whereas right now the norm is going Halo Blades and sneaking in those extra autos and going for the one shots and stuff like that. With this with another reduction of the burst on Duskblade, I'm starting to think a more not safe, because you don't want to play safe as Pyke, but a little bit more of a survivalist Pyke where you lock in Aftershock. Maybe you go Merc Treads, don't roam as much. That's kind of a way to keep his usefulness going into the late game, because Pyke drops off like a he drops off like a rock going to the late game. But if you've got Aftershock, you can actually like still be used as a reliable hard engage, maybe even get a peel off. So for that reason, I'm going to keep my eye on Pyke. I do think that he kind of got the short end of the stick for Season 11 itemization, because he's really kind of relegated into building Duskblade. You can go Prowler's Claw, but the way I look at that is Prowler's Claw is good and fun. Duskblade is great. So you need to decide whether you want a good and fun item or one great item on Pyke, and that's the great item is Duskblade. So Ashe, weirdly kind of strong this season. So you want to be building Imperial Mandate and just be using yourself as an ult bot. You are just going full CDR. You're not building attack speed. You're not building anything like that. You are just spamming W in lane, using your E to track the jungler, and then building full CDR. And I'm talking Lucidity Boots, which also got a buff this patch, and Imperial Mandate. Weirdly strong, quite oppressive in a lot of matchups actually. But yeah, you just want to be ulting off every 25 30 seconds, just looking for hard engages. That's how you're useful as this champion. Morgana is the ultimate counter pick. She will probably never be below tier 3, and there's going to be a lot of metas where she's tier 1 and tier 2. I would say she's in tier 3 not because the champion is any weaker than she has been in the past, but because a lot of her counters are not quite as strong. So you get the most out of this champion when you see the enemy team lock in a Blitzcrank or a Thresh or a Leona or an Alistar or a Nautilus. You let them lock that in, and you lock Morgana, and all of a sudden their bot lane is completely neutralized. Yes, you can be looking for picks and roots and aggressive plays, but the strength of Morgana will always, always, always be her black shield. So that is going to be Morgana. I do think she is still roughly average. She's kind of like Nico, where you can build Everfrost and do some really cool things with combos, like Q them, Everfrost, ult them, and it's fun. But I don't think she's any stronger than tier 3 right now. Xerath is slightly stronger than his poke counterpart, Vel'Koz. Slightly, not much. MF is pretty much just a cheese. Lock it in bot lane, full AP. Yeah, that's it. I like playing MF support Ashe ADC because Ashe just W's them, MF just E's them, and there's like almost no counterplay other than them bringing their jungler bot 10 times. But yeah, Annie is surprisingly doing pretty decent. I kind of think she's under the radar, honestly. Like, Annie, the name of the game in Season 11 is just blowing people up, one-shotting them, right? That is what Annie is always going to be able to do, even if you're playing her from the support position. And ever since they changed her E so that you can use it on other players, I think that's really, like, kind of underrated. It's a great, like, soft engage. Like, let's say you're getting a gank, but your jungler, like, your jungler is Graves, and he's ganking the enemy bot lane. You put Annie E on Graves, and he's just going to run them down, because it speeds them up and gives them a shield. So I really think that's underrated. She's not amazing, but better than I think a lot of people give her credit for. She's definitely not a troll pick like she was for the past couple of seasons. Speaking of troll picks, man, do I think that Teemo is underrated. I really do. What's hilarious is that you can just go full damage like with Liandry's, but I've honestly had a couple of like really good pop-off games where I'm building Moonstone Renewer on Teemo, which is hilarious that that even works, and that's even a sentence that can be said, but it's real. And the reason it works is because anytime you auto-attack, it's going to apply the poison from your E, right? Which means that you're going to get multiple procs of Moonstone off. So what you do is you walk up, you auto-Q someone, and then you're in combat for like the next like 5 or 6 seconds, which will proc Moonstone 3 times. Teemo is a surprisingly effective healer, which is pretty hilarious. Malphite, this champion is just kind of inherently broken. You're not going to want to lock him in as a support in bot lanes that have strong early game, because what you're going to do is you're just going to wait till 6 and then press R on someone, and that's how you're going to cheese your way through the game. You really don't bring anything to the table. You're not going to want to build tank. You're going to want to go full AP like I do in my full AP Malphite tubers. If you want to check those videos out, I encourage you to. They're fun, and it does work all the way in high elo. I played against Diamond 1 Master with it. It definitely works, but it does rely on cheese, and relies on being able to survive in lane until 6 while you basically provide nothing. Oh man, my girl. This makes me sad to see Senna solo in the tier list, but it is true. I have moved her up. Last patch she was on tier 4, so she do be climbing. And I've moved her up to tier 3 this patch because I have been doing a lot of experimenting on my stream at twitch.tv/Ioki, trying to find good builds for her. Currently, I am building a crit-based build. We're not even building lethality anymore, which is kind of crazy. But we are going for the, what's it called? The Gale Force into RFC or Stormrazor. Those are your 3 core items. That is about as good. Guys, I'm telling you, I've tried like 20, 30 different builds. I've tried so many builds with Senna. That's the one that I'm finding that is the best. And for that reason alone, it has elevated her out of tier 4. But we do have a little bit of good news, guys. It's not all doom and gloom for Senna. As of today, Riot has officially announced that they're looking into Senna. They realized that certain champions kind of fell through the cracks and didn't get the attention that they needed coming into preseason. The biggest issue with Senna is that she doesn't really have an AD. There isn't an AD support mythic, right? So AD supports, which are like Pyke, MF, Ashe, Senna, don't really have an item to build that is balanced around how much gold supports actually have. So as a support, you're forced to buy like 3,200 gold items, which is not really feasible. Like, look at the support mythics, or the tank support mythics. Like Locket, I think that's like 2,500 gold. 700 gold difference between those 2 items is a lot, because the meta is right now is you kind of get your mythic and then you're expected to pop off. So everyone's getting their mythic before you as a support, and you don't really have a way to compete with them. So Senna is still in a bad spot. Definitely don't recommend playing this champion unless you're like me and just love her. But she's better than she was last patch, I will say, just because I do think that's a really good build. And we've got some good changes coming, hopefully. Keep our fingers crossed for Senna, guys. Pray for her. Set. You pretty much just play this champion kind of like Malphite. He's kind of like the opposite of Malphite, actually. You want to start playing aggro level 1, like flashing out of a bush and engaging with phase rush and just trying to all in them. And then you quickly fall off. Like starting at like level 8, it feels like every other support has outclassed you or brings way more to the table than you outside of laning phase. But he is quite good and aggressive in laning phase. But you need to play him in a very, very aggressive cheese manner. So, getting into Tier 2, these champions are very good on the current patch. I highly recommend you play these, you learn these, you get with the program and climb with these. So let's get into it, guys. Tier 2, these champions are very good on the current patch. First up, we got Leona, the baby girl herself. I do think that Leona is quite strong, even though her itemization is not the best, and it's quite boring. The same problems that I talked about earlier with Nautilus and Thresh, where like Locket kind of is useless if you're diving, which is what Leona does. But stats-wise, it's still fine. Leona feels very tanky. When you build that, you're going to go Locket into Zeke's, and that's it. The game will probably be over by then. I definitely think Leona's quite good right now. Yuumi, I think I moved her up 2 spots from the last time we did a tier list, and that's because Moonstone has received like 3 buffs. Moonstone's pretty nuts right now. So I spoke about this a little bit earlier in the tier list. The strongest enchanters right now are the ones that can empower hyper carries. That has always been Yuumi's thing. You get a fed Graves, you get a fed Kayn, a fed Olaf, you plop a Yuumi on that, and then that's your ticket to victory, right? Moonstone will be consistently proccing as long as you're landing your Qs, your ultis, and that person that you're attached to is never going to die. Maokai, I believe he was in tier 1 last time I did a tier list. I think I've moved him down to the tier 2 just because the burst in the game has definitely settled a little bit. You can either go Imperial Mandate or Liandry's, depending on if they have tanks or squishies. Not in that order. But yeah, I do think full AP Maokai support is still very, very strong. Full AP Zyra is pretty self-explanatory. I just think she kind of deletes people. Nami, along the same lines of why Yuumi is strong, I do think Nami is just as good as enabling hyper carries as long as you've got a good eye for positioning. Swain, surprisingly strong. Just build those burn items, build Liandry's, build Demonic, and you're like an AP Thresh on steroids. You have so much catch potential starting at level 1 in the game. It's just crazy. You bring a level of utility where if you have anyone that's providing CC on your team, you just pull them. It's crazy. Swain is very, very strong. Blitzcrank, I kind of struggled with placing him in tier 2 because I think he's kind of a tier 3 champion. But then I compared him to his contemporaries, Nautilus and Thresh, and he's definitely stronger than those. I think I found a lot of success with Blitzcrank just because the pace of the game is very fast. It's very make a pick and get like 3 turrets off it kind of stuff. So it's all about one shots. So when once everybody has their mythic, we're pretty much all one shotting each other. So Blitzcrank pulls them in, your team one shots them, boom, you get a Baron, something like that. Janna and Karma are kind of coins of the two sides of the same coin. Janna is very easy procs on Imperial Mandate because her W procs it. Karma is just kind of good at, like I said, enabling hyper carries, and there's like 55 different hyper carries in the game. So I would say Karma also has a new skin and new buffs coming out. So I put her in tier 2 kind of in preparation for those buffs because I think that the buffs are going to prioritize shield maxing. So shield max Karma is going to be a little bit better. And yeah. Now let's get to the cream of the crop, guys. Tier 1, these champions are the best of the best in the current meta and should 100% be played if you want to climb. Brand, I think I've said everything I have to say about Brand when I was talking about the other champions. He just brings so much damage. I top the damage charts like every single game I play this champion. It is absolutely insane how much damage this champion does. You just build Liandry's Demonic and you auto win the game. Ever since he's received that rework that he got a couple of patches ago, where now his E like always spreads, you can basically shove in any champion or any bot lane, doesn't matter how pokey they are, you can just E the wave, W them, push them under their turret, and then they have no way to rotate, for instance, to scuttle fights. Um, yeah, I'm also going Comet. If you check out any of my brand gameplays, you see I'm going Comet, and I get asked that all the time. Why are you going Comet? Why are you going Comet? But if you play Comet brand, you'll see. Literally just E any minion that champions are standing next to. You never have to place yourself in damage to get the Comet proc, and you'll get so much more damage off like that than you would with the Dark Harvest, because you only have access to Dark Harvest when they're below half health. So I think the Comet is way, way, way more useful in way more scenarios. Next up is my queen, Seraphine. This champion is like pick or ban, in my opinion. I can't even believe people aren't complaining about how broken Seraphine is. She brings so much utility if you go like a Guardian page. She brings so much poke. She is probably the best team fighting champion in the game from the support position. Like, she is just so, so good. So right now I'm running a Guardian page with Imperial Mandate, and I go Imperial Mandate into Rylai's so that your Rylai's second item, so that any E will see hard CC them. Moving on to Lux, she brings a ton of damage, ton of utility. I think just like Seraphine, this champion's kind of just slipping through the cracks. Nobody's really talking about how broken this champion is. I think what makes her strong is that she's got versatility when it comes to builds and playstyles. She can go for like a shield Healy max, or just like a straight one-shot Giga Laser max playstyle. So yeah, that's it about Lux. Now Lulu, I think I've also talked about her to death in this video already. She just enables hyper carries. She is strangely oppressive in lane, especially because they buffed the way her Qs worked. So now if both Q lasers, like the Q coming out of Pix hits the same person that the Q coming out of you hits, it's double damage, or it's bonus damage. So weirdly oppressive in lane if you can land those. She can push people out of lane starting at level 1, and she can press R on a hyper carry, and that's what it's all about right now, fellas. So, guys, if you made it all the way through the video, I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments section. I am going to be responding to as many comments as I can. And once again, I am wishing you guys nothing but the best of luck out there. Go achieve your goals for Season 11. Hit whatever rank you're trying to hit. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, boys. Peace. Oh, and before anyone asks where Rel is on this tier list, I've got a special tier for her. Don't play Rel, guys. Don't play Rel.